Hi, I'm Father Shane, and this is The Spiritual Life. So we talked before about our soul, and we said that these videos are like the introductory slides of our soul. Today what I want to do is I want to break down the different powers that your soul has. We call these sometimes faculties. You could almost think of these things as like different maybe levels or abilities that your soul has. Okay? So your soul, you might imagine, has sort of higher powers, and then also powers that are a little bit more base or a little bit more common that you share actually with other things. So at the most basic level, there are powers that your soul has, parts that your soul has and drives that you share with all living things. Anything that has a soul, you share with them. Then there's a slightly higher level where you share with things that are like other animals. You've heard of a man as being like described as a rational animal before? Okay. So there are things that we share with the rest of the sort of animal world. But what separates us from the rest of creation is our intellect and our will. It's our intellect and our will that most, when we say that we're created in the image and likeness of God, this is the way in which we most mirror or resemble God. In fact, the intellect and the will are what unite us, or we share them in common with the angels, right? Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about those two, the highest and then the second highest parts of our soul, because it's often here that we get into trouble, but it's also these two areas where there's a lot that we could, if we just knew, we knew kind of the way to approach them, that life would be much more full and interesting and excellent for us. So the highest level, again, is our intellect and our will. Our intellect is simply the power that we have to know what is true. And our will is the power within our soul where we desire what is good. So the true and the good is what corresponds with that part of us that is our intellect and will. That middle part, right, that we share with animals are called sometimes our passions. We can call them also, more commonly, our feelings. So these are things like sadness, like anger, like joy, like love. These are our feelings, okay? Let me ask you a question. Are your feelings, do you think, good or not? Sometimes people talk about feelings like they are the only thing. So, people talk about the way that they feel all the time and maybe make decisions based on the way that they feel. Or maybe people say things like, again, like a cliche. They might say things like, follow your heart. Don't know what to do? Follow your heart. Okay? So sometimes people treat feelings like they're kind of the most important thing or the only thing. But then there are other people as well who treat feelings like they're awful, like they are a disaster in your life. And the less feelings you have, the better, right? Where do we stand? Well, as Catholics, we stand with neither of those two ways of approaching feelings or thinking about feelings. As Catholics, we know that we are made in the image of God and that God is our creator, and therefore God has made us well. He's the author of who we are. And so he didn't make us with anything that is wrong or which is bad. Okay, we're broken, and sometimes we lack kind of that harmony, and we can especially see that in the way that that higher level of our soul, our intellect and will, interplays with our feelings. But at the same time, we say that our feelings are very good. But here's what I would say about feelings. I think a great analogy or image to think about your feelings is like your feelings are like kids. Do you have any children yourself, or maybe do you have little brothers or sisters? Little brothers and sisters are better, right? Here's why. Little brothers and sisters can be annoying sometimes, right? And little brothers and sisters, especially the younger that they are, they should not be in charge. That's one of the things that I want to say about kind of children, right? They shouldn't be in the driver's seat. Can you imagine throwing the car keys to like an 8-year-old and saying, hey, why don't you head down to the store for me and pick up X, Y, or Z? You would never do that, right? Because a child shouldn't be behind the wheel. The second thing we want to say about kids, right, is that children need to be disciplined sometimes. They need to be told no. They need to be coached and sort of helped, kind of directed, basically, so that they're doing what they should be doing and not what they shouldn't be doing. But the third thing is also really important to remember about kids is that as annoying as they are, and sometimes as wild and, off the wall as they can be, that they are an important part of your family, and that your family wouldn't actually be your family without them. They are good, ultimately, and you don't want to get rid of them. Our feelings are very much like that. So think about the 3 things that we just said about kids. Number 1, they shouldn't be in the driver's seat. That is true about your feelings, right? Our feelings should not be the thing or the primary thing that we're basing our decisions off of, the way that we live. Your feelings are good, but listen to me now. They are only your feelings. Your feelings are good, but they are only your feelings. They should not be in the driver's seat in your life. They shouldn't be the primary thing that you're making your decisions on. Why? Well, one reason is your feelings change. We're fickle. We feel one thing one day, and then maybe tomorrow we feel differently, or a week later, or a year later, we feel differently. So we don't want to make our decisions based on what we feel like now, because we won't feel like that forever. And so then what happens if, 6 months down the road or 5 years down the road, we don't feel the same? Now we're sort of at a crisis point. Following your feelings, living your life just based on what you feel is a sure way to live chaotically and for you, yourself, to suffer an awful lot, and for the people around you to suffer an awful lot as well. The kids shouldn't be in the driver's seat of a car. In the same way, our feelings shouldn't be in the driver's seat of our life. The second thing that we said about kids is that kids need to be disciplined, right? The same thing is true for our feelings. Who disciplines the kids? Mom and dad, parents, right? Who disciplines our feelings, our passions? You guessed it, the intellect and the will, right? The higher level of of our souls, they are the parents. It's them that are sort of in the driver's seat, that are helping to make decisions, and that are sometimes saying no to our feelings, or who are saying saying no to our feelings. So our feelings, for example, let's say, we might find ourselves with a feeling of fear, right? If we let fear be in the driver's seat in our life, every time we felt fear, we made a decision based on the fear that we felt, we would forever be running. We wouldn't be able to face any challenge. Anytime we would face anything that was a little bit scary, we would crumple. Our intellect and our will, we know what's true, and we desire what's good. And sometimes that means overcoming and saying no to fear because something is worth facing that fear for. Does that make sense? Or maybe look at the feeling of, let's say, love or desire. We love something and we desire something. That's at that level. We see something and we want it. Our intellect and our will say, is that wise? And is that good? And if it isn't, then we say no to that feeling. And that's not to do damage to ourselves. That's not to do harm to ourselves. That's actually so important. That helps us to live well and wisely and excellently, to protect ourselves from some of the more problematic situations we can find ourselves in, and also not to do harm to other people as well. If we're thinking, what's the best thing here, the wisest, what's good, or what's true, and what's the best thing, what's good here, and we're letting those things kind of inspire the direction that we take in life, then we are going to live much more intelligently and well. And we're also going to be a better brother or sister, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, because our feelings won't be running roughshod over everybody else. That's the other thing about our feelings as well, is that sometimes we do things because we feel something for someone else, but very often our feelings are self-focused, right? So our feelings sometimes need to be disciplined. They need to be told no and not sit in the driver's seat. But again, the third thing that we said about kids is also true about feelings. Kids are important. You don't want to get rid of the kids, because if you did, your family wouldn't be the same. The same thing is true for your passions, for your feelings. They're good. They're good in and of themselves. Our feelings are not a bad thing. They're an important part of who you are. And when they are working in harmony within the whole of your soul, under the direction of your intellect, what you know to be good or true, and your will, what you know to be good and you desire is good, when they are working kind of in harmony with those, they add kind of vigor and a great spirit, passion to your life. In fact, that's one of the definitions of someone who's virtuous, is someone whose passions line up with their intellect and will, with what is true and they know to be true, and what's good and they desire is good. Your feelings are an important part of you, but they're only your feelings. They shouldn't be in the driver's seat. Sometimes they need to be told no, but they are a good thing. And when well ordered, they're part of this beautiful harmony, which is your soul. It's one of the main things that Jesus, in his commandments and his teaching, helps us. And his grace gives us freedom so that our souls can become more and more over time, and with our kind of trying to build good habits, which we call virtues, can become more harmonious and more what they ought to be. Those are just some of the elements of your soul. We'll go and look at them in a little bit more detail in later videos, but that's maybe a good starting point. Thanks everybody, and God bless.